Hi, and welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy, a proud member of the Sightcraft Network. The goal of this podcast is to demystify therapy, what can happen in therapy, and the wide array of conversations you can have in and about therapy. Through personal experiences, guests will talk about therapy, their experiences with it, and how psychology and therapy are present in many places in their lives, with lots of authenticity and a touch of humor. Here is your host, Steve Bisson.
Hello, Sultani Fight. It is the holiday season coming up, and welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy. This is episode 178. Episode 177 was with Meg Applegate. If you haven't listened to it, I promise you want to listen to it because it talked about the troubled teen industry. I will probably have Meg again if I can, because there's so many things that she discussed that I thought was fascinating and too little time in order to do so. But episode 178, as I promised, we're going to talk about the holidays. But let me talk about politics for a second. And what I mean by that is the election. I was thinking, I'm recording this about Sunday. Originally, I thought it was going to take 3-4 days to get the results because they were talking about being so close. But it was decided on the same, well, not quite the same night, right? Wednesday morning, I guess, technically. And Donald Trump was elected as the next president. And I know a lot of people were frustrated with some of that, including people who are in the camp of the Kamala Harris. And, one of the things I want to talk about before I talk about the stress of the holidays, I want to talk about the stress of the elections. One of the things I said to a lot of my clients is that please don't consume anything in regards to the election regularly. And what I mean by that is stay away from social media. The algorithm will get you whatever you want to hear. And if you do listen to news reports, try to vary where you're going to get your information and not go with only one source. And I also don't recommend to do the big American news stations, but rather be a little more curious about the outsiders, to be a little more neutral. And I know there's no such thing as neutral, but certainly look into that. But yes, I think that with a lot of the stuff that happened with the election, a lot of people were frustrated. A lot of people were very happy. And now there's fears, and then there's concerns, and then there's anger and some elation and bragging rights, right? Because that all comes with elections. Find a balance. I really think it's going to be key. And what I mean by finding a balance is that don't consume all the social media you can. Don't consume all the news. And right now, we only know what's going to happen today, tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen on January 27, 2025 yet. And don't speculate. And I know that some people say, well, they're saying going to do this, they're saying going to do that. And some people are very excited about that. Some people are very concerned about it. And I tell you, well, nothing's happened yet. And that's what I kind of remind a lot of people. You're going to say that I'm kind of selling out a little bit about how I feel. I'm not saying exactly how I feel. Because frankly, I think that if you wanted my opinion, I will give it to you. But I won't do it on a podcast. I will do it privately. Send me a message. There's a way just to go to click on the message in whatever you're listening to, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever. Just go click and send me a message. I'll tell you my point of view. But ultimately, my point of view is there's always going to be a winner and a loser because there's only a two-party system. I'm a big fan of a third party. And I know that a lot of people will say, oh, that's because you're a Canadian. I'm American now. I vote in this election. I am legally an American, in case anyone wonders. And I still think that two-party systems are just made to do that, to push one against the other. And that probably will come up during the holidays. So what I'd like to do is for you guys to listen to this important message from free.ai, and then I'll come back on the other side. GetFree.ai. Yes, you've heard me talk about it previously in other episodes, but I'm going to talk about it again because GetFree.ai is just a great service. Imagine being able to pay attention to your clients all the time instead of writing notes and making sure that the note's going to sound good and how are you going to write that note and things like that. GetFree.ai liberates you from making sure that you're writing what the client is saying, because it is keeping track of what you're saying and will create, after the end of every session, a progress note. But it goes above and beyond that. Not only does it create a progress note, it also gives you suggestions for goals, gives you even a mental status if you've asked questions around that, as well as being able to write a letter for your client to know what you talked about. So that's the great thing. It saves me time. It saves me a lot of aggravation, and it just speeds up the progress note process so well. And for $99 a month, I know that that's nothing. That's worth my time. That's worth my money. The best part of it too is that if you want to go and put in the code Steve50 when you get the service, at the checkout code is Steve50, you get $50 off your first month. And if you get a whole year, you save a whole 10% for the whole year. So again, Steve50 at checkout for getfree.ai will get you $50 off for the first month. And like I said, get a full year, get 10% off. Get freed from writing notes, get freed from always scribbling while you're talking to a client, and just paying attention to your client so they win out, you win out, everybody wins. And I think that this is the greatest thing. And if you're up to a point where you got to change the treatment plan, well, the goals are generated for you. So getfree.ai, code Steve50 to save $50 on your first month. Welcome back. And when I talk about, so people are going to be unhappy, some people are going to be happy, and they're going to don't want to talk about it at the holidays. Some people want to talk about it. Point being is that limit it. One of the things is that, like I said, when there's only a two-party system, there's a winner and a loser. And I know that people will say, well, there's other parties, yeah, but they're not pushed the same. And both sides in the United States have made it clear that they don't want a third party. And if you don't know why they feel that way, just look at what happened with Bernie Sanders in the primaries in 2008, or not 2008, 2016. I'm sorry. But anyway, I digress. Point being is, we're not in a system where we're going to be able to agree, and it's always going to be us versus them. And I think that that's the craziest thing, because we're all Americans. And I know you're going to say it's a cop out again, but no, the truth is we're all Americans. I want what's best for this country. Just like most Americans that I know, I don't think of any Americans actually that don't want that, but I don't want to put everyone in the same, because I don't do all or nothing thinking, haha, kind of distortions. But, learning to walk away and not let, emotional reasoning be what you see. So if you're very happy and that's all you're going to be, then yeah, that's not necessarily everything's going to be happy or hunky dory if your candidate won. And if you're very, very sad, that doesn't mean things will always be sad or angry, or you can be angry, which is fine too. But you're not going to be angry and sad necessarily. It's not going to always be all or nothing. And if you're embracing the all or nothing, you're going to have trouble embracing the holidays, because the holidays is very difficult, right? So I'm going to talk about the holidays now. I'm done talking about politics. Again, I just get sick of it personally. And I really think that we need to acknowledge that some people struggle with the holidays, not only because of the politics, but other stuff. So if you had someone who passed away recently in the last year, this is the first holidays without them, and that hurts. And acknowledge that in the way that, it hurts, it's upsetting, whatever the case may be, and realize that maybe you can develop new traditions, and there's ways to deal with that. So, for some people, it's starting a new tradition of doing it at a different house, or people bringing their own dishes, or being able to do an activity that you don't typically do, go drive around and find the lights in the area, or visiting other people as a different coping mechanism. But the point is that, bring your whole range of emotions, be okay with feeling the way you do. And also realize that this too shall pass. It's not going to last forever. And if you, again, getting someone who passed away and you want to start these new tradition, it'll help you feel like you've changed. You're never forgotten about that person. That's something I got to remind you, is that you won't forget about that person. It's always going to be there. And some years are going to be harder and some years are going to be easier. But realizing that changing maybe the tradition will also make it easier, and keep them in mind, whether it's also, like, I know a client of mine goes to a particular church and lights candles in the memory of the people who passed away around the holidays, whether it's around Christmas, whether it's Thanksgiving, whether it's the New Year. But it's very important to do so. And also realizing that self-care also means setting boundaries. And what I mean by that is this: I'm going to get probably a few invites. I'm not that social, actually, frankly, but I'm going to get a few invites to different holiday gatherings in the next few weeks. And there's some of them I will want to go excitingly, and others I don't want to go. And I got to respect that in me, because, I know myself. I can socialize a couple times a week, but I get really overwhelmed after a while. Most people think of me as someone who's extroverted because of my job. You obviously hear me on this podcast. I can be very loud, but I'm actually a little bit of both. I love being able to meet people. I enjoy that time, but I'm not always able to recharge my batteries if I don't get a chance. So I want to do that. So I'm going to set some boundaries myself, and tell people you want to do certain things. The other part of setting boundaries is not talking about certain things. Yeah, we talked about politics earlier, but it's also kind of like other stuff about, some people want to talk about people who passed away and others don't. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just realizing what your boundaries are and making sure you respect them. And that doesn't mean you take it out on other people. So I've seen people say, here's my boundary, you better listen. And that's not how that works. And boundary is like it's for you. And if you've got to walk away, you walk away. And if people get upset, then they get upset. But you don't need to always like push it on people, so to speak. Your boundaries are yours. You don't need to explain it to people. Pardon me. You just have to be able to share them if you need to, but otherwise just set them and be okay with steering away conversations that are too difficult for you, which leads to self-care. So again, I talked about me being much more of a introvert than most people believe. So, I'm not going to set up 5 things in a 5-day period. I'm going to set up 1 or 2, and then I'm going to do some self-care, doing things I enjoy. Honestly, it's like taking a night off and watching something on TV, usually a sports event, or going away with my kids for a night or 2 just to have fun, or even doing something just with them, not in the crowds, but rather just me and them, because it's fun, whether we're, decorating the tree, because again, we celebrate Christmas. You don't have to celebrate Christmas, but we do, are rearranging a little bit of the living room in order to make that work or try some new things. But I also need to find ways to take care of myself, and that's good sleep, eating regularly, and making sure you get all the rest that you need. And staying connected with the people you care for. So, like it's easy to isolate because you're so overwhelmed. But, I have a few friends that I count on. They know who they are. I've talked about some of them that are up in Canada. And I have a few friends out here too that are just people I connect with and I care for, and I want to continue connecting with them just to keep my well-being. And sometimes that's hard, but I make time for them, and that's absolutely important to do. And focusing on the positive, what are the good things that happen in the holidays? While you can concentrate on the idiots at the mall cutting you off or taking your parking spot or what have you, you can also, your kids, are you having a good time? Like I know people love that Black Friday shopping. I can't imagine doing that, but people like that. People like to have those gatherings of cutting down the tree. We used to do that, me and the girls, my daughters, and we don't do that anymore. We have a nice fake tree that we actually like. So, but finding those things that you enjoy and focus on those positives, because when you're cutting down the tree, you're putting it in the house, you're doing it together, cleaning up the needles, laughing about maybe dropping an ornament, not losing your crap about it, and thinking about how you're building your relationship with others by doing these fun things. There's a shrine not far from my house, and they put out the Christmas lights, I think. And again, you can celebrate whatever you want, I'm not pushing Christmas. Put up the lights probably around Thanksgiving, probably a little before that. And then walking around there with my kids is just fun. I remember pushing them in a stroller doing that. And now they're, old enough, they're older, and they walk with me, and we have a great time. And if all things break down, you can't do it, seek professional help. Obviously, you know that finding your way through therapy is also talking about having a therapist. I'm a big fan of having a therapist. I know I have one, and I have people who come in every 6 months, every 3 months, every year, whatever the case may be. And that's fine with me. But sometimes, I have people like, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can I come back for a few sessions, or the holidays are difficult, or something happened, or whatever. So hopefully you have someone like that. If not, seek professional help in the sense that get people who can help you in managing your anxiety, managing your stress. And, sometimes it's also venting. People don't think about therapy as a venting thing, but coming in and just having to say what the hell you want to say. I let people just yell, scream, cry, whatever they need to do in order to feel comfortable. So those are the things I would recommend. And if you have like some sort of, you journal, you do some mindfulness, you do some meditation, you do some stuff like that, go ahead and continue doing that. Yoga is a great one too. But find those things that you can do so that it can reduce the stress that you have. But I do hope this was helpful. And obviously, you'll see in the show notes a little bit of these tricks. And if you want extra tricks, just write me a text through any platform you're using right now, and I'll definitely help you out. But this concludes episode 178. But episode 179 is going to be with someone that, I got connected with through, it was interesting. They connected with me via Facebook, and Her name is Erica Curry. I think she has a great story. We're going to talk about working with professional athletes, among other things, but also DBT and how that can help everyone, not just, quote, borderline personality disorder. So I hope you join me then.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States and Canada.